Aileron, and I've had a million questions about how you say this. It's Aileron. And this word harkens from McCabe's roots as one of Nashville's first airfields. Years and years ago, this was a stopping point for biplanes in the very first initiations of flight here in Nashville. The wings move naturally in the air, and the forged bronze pattern of rivets evokes airplane construction. This piece belongs to citizens, belongs to you. And the more we can do to explain and help folks understand the context of the work, the better off we all will be to embrace and love the public collection.
I started my interest in art in high school and was well-rounded in drawing and painting. I had the opportunity to go to the Kansas City Art Institute, which is a 4-year program for fine arts. I was then introduced to sculpture, where I found that working with my hands was really my calling. Building mechanical and engineering pieces out of metal and stone. Blacksmithing has always been very important to our society on many different levels. The blacksmith made everything from weapons to eating utensils to tools. Everything that was made out of metal was basically made by a blacksmith. During the Industrial Revolution, I think that, a lot of that handcraft skill started to taper off when the machines started taking over and building stuff, and they were able to make it cheaper because there was less hand work involved. I found this call, applied to the RFQ, gave my qualifications, and was picked as a semifinalist of 4 sculptors. We then came to Nashville and got to visit the site and learn about the building and the community center, where the possibilities of the sculptures were going. Got to be introduced to the community, the area around this park. We got to study the history of the area. That led me to my proposal to Nashville, which was inspired by the biplane of the 1920s from McConnell Airfield. And this was the first airfield here. Went through a process of building a model, bringing it to Nashville, and giving my proposal. This sculpture was engineered professionally. It was a process where I gave the engineer my idea, and they actually run wind loads and mathematical equations to figure out what exactly is needed to hold this piece up. Once I was picked, we went through another process of engineering and developing strategies to actually build the piece in my studio in Atlanta. From then it was just a lot of hot work. When you're forging metal, basically you are heating it to a point that it becomes more like clay, a frozen clay or something. It's very hard. You still have to use a lot of energy to actually move it. But the main process of forging is fire and a hammer. These hammers are very large industrial pieces of machinery that actually formed the metal into shape. This is a solid piece of metal, up to 4 inches square in its dimension. The plate is 2 inches thick, so we're talking about a lot of weight, a lot of material to move around. It may look simple, but the logistics of moving 1,000-pound pieces around and forging on 300-pound sections is immense. This sculpture on this type of scale I have not accomplished before, so it was a learning process for me. I had to build certain tools and whatnot to actually pull it off. In history, there was a material called wrought iron, which didn't have carbon in it, and it was much easier to forge. Nowadays they put carbon in iron and it makes steel. This material is very durable, and the size of the material that I used will guarantee that this work will be here for hundreds of years, maybe 1,000 years. Bronze is holds up very well outside as well. The wings are all bronze. It's a heavy-duty piece, and it's going to be there forever. And I think that's why I use the materials that I do. They're heavy. They're not real wispy in the wind. They're very steady, very graceful movements. When we assembled the 3 legs of the structure together, we actually had a rivet that was prepared on one side, already mushroomed over, and we slid it through the bottom piece, set the next one on top, and set the final one on there. I actually built a small forge that I could bring out and set on the rivet to give it initial heat. That allowed me to then take a smaller unit, handheld torch, and concentrate the heat in the areas that I needed and actually rivet the top half over to secure the pieces together. And I think that was important to show the community how this was done. I think that was a real great benefit to the installation. Once it was riveted together, we were able to take the crane and actually stand it up and put it in the hole and bolt it down. There's a concrete pad underneath the surface of the stone, which the base is bolted to, which was all engineered to hold the piece up for very high winds. At that point, we were able to lift the wing and set it on a series of bearings that were engineered to hold the weight and to survive, large dramatic weather events. Once we got it up on there, it was windy, it moved immediately, everybody was cheering, it was a great time. The color and the texture, the hammer marks of the rusted steel, the patina on the bronze, they're very natural. They're a natural base. They connect with the land. They connect with people. They connect with the area's architecture. So these elements I try to incorporate pull the piece into the community, I think. I wanted to create a movement in the piece, even if it wasn't moving. So the legs really give you an upward sweeping motion, and then they separate at the point of the rivet to actually carry your eye on through and upward. So I'm just trying to visually create an upward movement to the whole piece, and then when you get to the wing, it kind of horizontals out, and to me that represents, like if I was, a little kid flying around in the yard just waving my arms. That freedom, I think, is what I was trying to capture in the airplane, and people being inspired by flight of birds. Even if it wasn't moving, I was trying to capture that in a way. It's a great opportunity to have people interact with my work, discover it. This work can be, you may not notice that it moves. And then one day you see the shadow moving on the ground, or you see it out of the corner of your eye and you understand then, wow, that's pretty neat, it moves, So that part of the discovery is important to me. And I think to this day, it still seems magical to me that I can walk up to the forge and stick that piece in the fire, pull it out and make something out of it and have the longevity of that material. And it captures the hammer marks, it captures a piece of time, it captures a moment, it captures where I was at in my life, it captures my history, it speaks about, each mark was made by my hand, so those marks are part of me. How do we keep this going? Because there's not a whole lot of call for the work to be done on a need basis. It's more of an ornament basis, or it's art basis. And I think that was you know, the main objective is to keep blacksmithing alive. We're going to have to keep it moving in this direction as far as ornamenting something or making it on a level of art to really bring it to the people. And I think that that's really why it survived.